Good afternoon, everybody. Early evening, whatever you want to define it as. My name is Phil, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Metaba. We are the science behind personalized vitamins. And before I get started, I just want to ask a question to the audience. How many of us have taken a vitamin or a supplement before? Pretty good. Nice. And so how many of us that have done that knew if it was working or not? Okay. If you did, I want to talk to you afterwards. It doesn't look like my time is going yet, but that's all good. I'll take all the time I can get. The problem is exactly that. We don't know what vitamins are actually working, right? A significant portion of the US population are taking these supplements, spending a lot of money on these supplements. Additionally, there are vitamin and metabolite depletions due to chronic diseases. Pretty big problem. The existing solutions are pretty minimal in addressing this. A lot of these solutions that are offering a personalized vitamin are using a questionnaire. And I will admit there's some lifestyle choices that should be considered in giving this. It's not the full picture. And so we want to give you a scientifically based recommendation using advanced metabolomics. Quickly, what metabolomics is the study of small molecules or metabolites, an extremely powerful tool that's been used in research for decades. And we want to apply this to giving you, your optimal health. So brief, what it looks like is we will send you a kit. You can take a sample at your own convenience, and then you send that to us, the metabolomics experts. We're going to analyze it. And then at your door will be the vitamins that you should be taking based on the identified depletions. And so it's a very streamlined process. And there are options for how this model can be used. Of course, there's the essential plan for any, health conscious, health curious individual that wants to get, some information on what should I be taking. There's also a high performance plan, that might be more for athletes, personal trainers, high performance, peak performance that we're trying to offer here. And then of course the enterprise plan where you have, an organization such as Kaiser that wants all their patients to be, predictive of maybe their health. We're keeping them healthy. That's what we want in our population. So this market is huge. We have the global market, US market, and something that I want to point out is the CAGR of the personalized supplement market. And this is especially apparent in, the younger generations that are, clearly showing a preference for personalized health. And this is extremely important for, how these markets are developing, and that's exactly where we are going to be. The go-to-market strategy, we're already discussing pilot studies with franchises like the LA Rams, UCLA football, really all of UCLA athletics. And we want to show this proof of concept with the actual athletes, and then the kind of markets itself for the general population. And then ultimately, where we want to see metabolomics going in the future is in military and clinical applications. And I am very quickly running out of time. I think the clock is going the other direction. We have an amazing team to pull it off. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you for listening.
Great presentation, Phil. I have a quick question.
Thank you.
I know you said this is personalized and everything. Consider things such as like age, other background, things such as like maybe ethnicity or something like that. Because I know, for example, hormones, for example, can be transient and change throughout a person's lifetime. So does this also affect vitamins in the same way?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's basically what the questionnaires that are currently offered, are considering, age, race, all these factors that you can easily answer in a questionnaire, which do have an effect on what vitamins you should be taking, but it's not the full picture, and of course there's genetic variants depending on how you might metabolize a certain vitamin, and it gets very complex very quickly. And I think the reason we really want to use metabolomics in this use case is that the metabolomics gives us the phenotypic outcome, right? This is like after genes, after, RNA, proteins, this is this is what's happening in the cell. This is what's happening in the biological system. And that is what we're trying to affect, right? What is the healthy metabolomic profile? How can we bring everyone to that profile, essentially? Yep.
Can you just expound on what you're doing with the Rams and UCLA? Are you actually doing a performance study with them, or what is your
We're
relationship?
discussing pilot studies with the teams, yeah. Also, I just put the LA representation there. We also have, UConn and other schools and access to all that professional talent. So in the discussions, other ones I can't mention yet, but there's some big names out there for sure. And we want to show that value add to that high performance level. And then, then that makes it like really attractive for the general population. Like, oh, if these professional athletes are using this to increase their performance, of course, if it's your favorite team as well, the fans really want to follow that as well. So that's the go-to-market strategy.
And have you done any consumer studies along those lines, the willingness to actually give a sample, pay for the sample, and then have that personalized, so to speak, regime of vitamins?
That's a great question. And that is something we're working on. We're, doing our own kind of tests with sending blood samples in the mail, different, parameters. We haven't done any like direct getting a clinical sample from somebody, but just from my own market research networking here, anyone that I've talked to is like, sign me up. I want to, test me out, So there seems to be a lot of support. Of course, you want to market test that, and that's part of the money that we're raising. We really want to, verify that product market fit and fine tune what we're going to actually be offering them.
And your business is charging for the evaluation, or are you making a margin on the vitamin that you're going to be prescribing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we've built and what our expertise is the metabolomics analysis. And so what we've built is that basically automation of the data processing, and we're applying that to this use case. And so I think the thought behind offering the vitamins directly as well is there's just a larger margin for profit in terms of the business model.
Got it. This will sound like a wicked question, but so there are some vitamin deficiencies that we know of, right? Like vitamin D, but there's not a lot of vitamin deficiency in the United States. It's actually relatively well controlled, right? Because of the FDA and the availability of vitamins in the foods that we consume. After you do your study and it turns out that most people don't need a lot of vitamin supplements, how will that affect your business case?
Actually, that's another great use case. Is probably for this country, what's more relatable is the overconsumption, right, of whatever, including vitamins. And that can also be very unhealthy. And so we can compare their profile and what metabolites, maybe it's not depleted, maybe it's a significant increase. And then we can recommend to not, take those, or decrease, maybe something in your diet that will bring you back to like a more healthy level. Yeah, great question.
I think this technology can have a great impact on pharma in general, right? I mean, starting from treatment options to patients, more serious cases than just supplements. How did you come up with starting with going with food supplements instead of going more hardcore and deep science?
Yeah, it's a great question. To be quite honest, we're still doing our deep scientists. As scientists, that's what we enjoy. And so it had actually originally started based on a new target we had discovered in tuberculosis using metabolomics. And so it's very clear the power of this tool. And especially in the clinical aspect, looking forward, that's really where we want to move. I believe I have a slide that shows, these are some of the publications my co-founder is on using metabolomics. It's widely applicable. But this is the one I wanted to show you where this is a great clinical example where we looked at infected populations, non-infected populations for non-tuberculosis mycobacterium. And we could clearly, it's kind of small, the heat map, but you can see the healthy control compared to two different infected populations. And like, those are pretty easy to see, right? And so based on patient plasma samples, detecting metabolites, we can determine if they had an infection or not. So there's extreme value add for diagnostics, especially in harder to diagnose diseases such as NASH, which is something we're currently working on, which the current way that they diagnose this is a liver biopsy. Little invasive, right? So the FDA is really pushing for other solutions, and so that's something we're after, as well as prognostic biomarkers where we could maybe identify an earlier surrogate endpoint in clinical trial, and we all know how much money we can save with something like that. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think one thing is that, and I might be completely wrong, but perhaps there is a risk. I mean, for what you are trying to target right now, there are other solutions too, right? A lot of things in the market through biome, through like you name it, like lots of different type of solutions for the same problem. But what if you are not going to be a pioneer or like overtake the market, wouldn't it be more difficult to pivot towards this after this trial? I mean, have you done a market research on that and you came up that this is a better way because this is lower hanging fruit for you? Or because now omics is a big deal, right? I mean, everybody is talking about it, proteomics and genomics, transcriptomics, doing all of it together for example, like cancer treatment, like options picking and so on and so forth. So, I mean, maybe.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And we actually had originally started to go after the clinical, because we have data like this. And, I've talked to clinical stage companies and described how much value can be added. And it can be a little bit of a harder sell if it's something that, it's like, oh, we have these clear endpoints. We don't need anything else. And if it's like technically still preclinical research, academic publications, you need to kind of have some track record before they're willing to look at you. And so this is, in my mind, the strategy of, okay, we can, fine tune our process, get ourselves on the map with much lower hanging fruit, ultimately moving into the clinical stage where it's like, oh, we have this track record. It might not be directly like clinical trial data, but we have that proof and track record. So it's a great question.
So when you think about your kind of secret sauce, so it's the metabolomics, like that's where you are differentiated. Like, do you need the supplement business for this to work?
So Metabolomics is, Lucy had alluded to some of the competitors, and most of them are all in like basic research, clinical research. And Metabolomics itself is not the secret sauce. It's the application of metabolomics. But what our differentiator is from some of these other, players in the metabolomics field is our automated data processing pipeline. And so the idea is to use these metabolomic profiles to identify, aberrations for, these clinical use cases, but ultimately we're building that data set so we can have a healthy control population and then, again, give these recommendations. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there's similar competitors, but it's not direct. It's kind of like parallel technologies that are having different use cases, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Great presentation.